you guys, we are on lesson 17 of our Soul Lessons and Soul Purpose journey with Sonia Choquette. Address your mistakes. So the lesson is to address your mistakes, and the purpose is to live with integrity in all areas of your life. Admit to and correct your mistakes when you make ego-centered decisions, avoid responsibility, give your power away, bypass the work of growing your soul, and fail to love yourself. You will eventually be confronted by your errors until you repair them. This is divine law. Yeah, I was just thinking about that. You know the saying, you know, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I think that's the saying, something like that. Yeah, it's really true. Lately I've been looking at, instead of my intent, the consequences, right? I think that's a more responsible and a way of looking at behavior with more integrity. How does it affect everyone involved? What are the consequences for this? And even if my intentions weren't all bad or were good, I don't like when other people do things that that affect me negatively, but I know they have good intentions. So trying to shift that for myself and just take full responsibility. I also realized I hadn't posted on time. Last video I mentioned I was going to New York City, and I was there for 10 days. Didn't get a chance to record or look at the lesson, but had a really amazing time there, reconnecting with old friends and just not feeling so isolated. It was definitely a social time, and I wanted to make the most of it, so I definitely did that. So yeah, that's why this one's a little late. I was kind of coming back and regrouping. I got into a groove of celery juicing and drinking smoothies and doing a more plant-based diet, so I feel like that's my path for now. It's been really good so far. That's one way I felt like I could take accountability and be responsible for past actions and kind of make amends to myself by getting on a healthier path. I haven't always taken good care of my body or even really been friends with my body. I had made an enemy of it. So and not always intentionally. I had a memory come up of my first time showering in my dorm in New York City. Like I had this flashback that was actually kind of traumatizing because I wasn't used to things being so dirty, and I dissociated because it was so, I dissociated from my body because it was just so, I couldn't bear the thought that it was so dirty. And I just thought that's interesting because it definitely still affects me. Like I had like almost like a traumatic recall of it. Very interesting. And I realized that's one reason, that's one trigger for me to dissociate, is if I feel like things aren't the cleanest, I will just drown it out. I will drown it out. I can't bear it sometimes. So yeah, that was definitely a very weird experience. But the reason I bring that up is because like it wasn't something that I chose consciously, but it was one way I kind of tortured myself and tortured my body. I don't know. It's really interesting. Like it felt terrifying. I was meditating and the memory came in and it was so jarring, and it wasn't something I had consciously really thought about ever. So I'm not sure why that came up. I think just yesterday or the day before in meditation, and it was like, whoa, what? I didn't even really remember that. And it was just kind of my body saying, yeah, it's one reason you're never really fully grounded. Like, it was really hard for me to kind of be present with what I perceived was a really dirty city. It's really hard to be present with that and make peace with that. Even when I revisited, it felt kind of toxic. It felt a little, I mean, it is a dirty city. The standard of clean is much different in New York. I noticed that. And so putting myself, going there and committing to making my dreams happen and my path and my purpose and learning and growing also exposed me to a lot more toxins, a lot more pollution and chemicals and dirt and soot and nauseating smells and things like that. And I think my body is still forgiving me for that and detoxing and healing. Right now I'm really doing a huge liver detox, and through celery juicing and plant-based smoothie, liver detox smoothie, based on the medical medium's work. But yeah, so things like that, not that that was a mistake, but because this is about addressing your mistakes, but it had an impact. I mean, so kind of making amends there to my physical self, which I had the tendency to ignore or abuse, and just trying to make it do what I wanted it to do instead of having compassion and making peace, which I'm working on now. It may seem harsh or unfair to be held so accountable for everything in your life, but unless you are, you will never be fully in charge of your creative ability. Facing where you have gotten off track empowers you, for it is your chance to examine your choices and their outcomes. See where they fail to serve your growth and make corrections. We'll be looking at that in meditation. It'll be a briefer meditation, but I figure with all the practice we're doing, some of you may feel a little annoyed at how lengthy the meditation is and don't need all that time to kind of get into a state or meditative trance. So we'll just do the breathing and then jump right into the visualization part, and it'll make for a shorter meditation in that way. And we'll only do we'll only work through one one thing, one mistake, even if it was unintentional, work through one that's really priority to sort of make right, even indirectly, and then you can always repeat, right? You can always redo the meditation at any time. Anytime you feel as though you are a victim, believe that you are unworthy, or are self-destructive or unloving to yourself or others, it is a sign that you have made an error somewhere along the way and need to alter your course to bring you back to center. Until you make the necessary changes, you will lose your power and fail to fulfill your purpose as a divine creative being. Yeah, it's interesting how certain choices or words can have an impact on us. Even when we feel righteous in them, right? I did a reading recently. I was practicing tarot, and I did a tarot reading recently, and in the cards, what came up for the recipient was that he was upholding his boundaries and delivering some harsh truths to people who were potential romantic partners or dates or whatever, and just not putting up with any like terrible behavior or even just slightly bad behavior, just not having patience for it. And what showed was the harshness and the criticism and sort of that blunt blow to the other person's ego was actually negatively affecting him. And he was waking up with, it was in the cards, right? Waking up in the middle of the night with anxiety and nightmares and things like that. And it was like, you think that you're just upholding boundaries with these people, but this is how you're speaking to yourself too, even unconsciously. And are you really living up to those standards with the people in your life? Because if not, you possibly believe you deserve to be treated that way too. So, and you might be doing that to yourself, you know, unconsciously, torturing yourself, right? So, it's interesting. There will be consequences. There are always consequences when we're not living up to our own standards and our own good opinion, and not doing what we know is right and living in integrity. It does show up again, doesn't it? It comes back around to teach us and show us, even if we don't make the connection right away. Sometimes it seems indirect. It doesn't seem connected, but we're always given the opportunity to learn and grow. The universe loves you and only holds you in pure adoration. It is not the one that is asking for corrections. It is your own soul that longs to come into alignment with the flow of greater consciousness. Yeah, I feel like that's why I'm feeling a little more grateful for this time of isolation, of solitude, of minimal human interaction, getting used to my own rhythms, healing myself, and having the space to kind of contemplate and reflect so I can make necessary changes for myself. That's really a gift that not a lot of people have the luxury of having, you know, to be able to really dive deep and shift patterns. And you know, I always thought of myself as someone who held myself to high standards and had accountability for my actions and made amends and forgave and tried to be a really good, decent human being. And what I came to learn is I was falling short at caring for myself. I was really falling short there. I thought, I want to be the one that shows up for people, even if I'm not present because I'm so drained. Or I want to be the one who picks up the phone when someone calls, because I know people need like a kind ear. I know that people need empathy, and it turned into a lot of enabling. We empaths have tendencies and energy patterning and certain behaviors where we are susceptible to enmeshment. And that's another thing I'm discovering about this time, is that it's much easier for me to be alone, because I don't have to reconcile my choices with anybody. I don't have to be all that decisive, really. I just go with the flow and do what I want to do, make my own time schedule, apart from when I have to be at work and things. But it's just so much more comfortable. And you know, that is on the spectrum of codependency, is to isolate, because we have the tendency to get enmeshed. And that's something I'm definitely healing. I noticed when I went to New York, that was sort of a check-in for me. There was a time I might have felt obligated to reach out to certain people or spend the majority of my time with specific people, but I really didn't didn't allow that to weigh on me this time. I had conversations, I was clear, I had boundaries, I had compassion for myself and others, and I was really good at withholding those boundaries of behavior. It felt like I was white knuckling it. It was only 10 days, and I felt like I would have gotten swept up. If it was even a little bit longer, I probably would have gotten swept up into the strong will of other people. That's what the city tends to do to me. With such a sensitive system with porous energetic boundaries, just getting sucked into the will of others, and becoming complacent with my own desires. And I guess I'm realizing that that's what this time is about for me too, is getting really clear about what I exactly want, kind of processing out the shoulds. You know, Tony Robbins says we should all over ourselves. I think that's part of accountability to ourselves. Being really clear. I can't make something happen if I'm not sure what it is that I want to happen. So waiting for the clarity is part of self-care, I think, and self-respect, and not jumping into situations where I'm unsure. I've learned that through studying the human design system. In human design, I have emotional authority. I think we talked about this before. You may resonate with this. I have a defined emotional center, so I have emotional authority, which means when I make decisions or commitments, I need to give myself a cycle to really, an up and down, a night's sleep, a moon cycle, like a full month, or a high and a low, whatever it is, depending on the size of the commitment, right? I need to honor my need to really feel my way through it, because once I make the decision, if I make the decision logically, I still have to grapple with my emotions around it, because I do have emotional authority. So knowing that and using it rationally, how am I going to feel, right? Emotional resonance. That's what we do when we manifest anyway. How will I feel? And I assess that when I'm in a high state, when I'm more neutral, and when I'm in a low state. I have that since I'm in the emotional flow, not expecting myself to just remain neutral at all times. I don't think that's realistic for me. So allowing myself that before I commit or before I make a decision. And sometimes that's a long time, right? Especially, I have a 6-2 profile, so I am a role model hermit. The role model part means, and you can look up yours, humandesignamerica.com, and you can see what your profile is, and just doing a little research, you'll find information all over the internet about it. If you have a 6 in your profile, you're a role model, and that means success comes later in life. You learn through mistakes, right? That's what this chapter is about. The person who actually introduced me to this system had told me, you know, if your parents were aware, you know, that this was your profile type, it would have been really good for you if they encouraged you to try things and to have failures, you know, to make mistakes, because that's how you mature and grow and learn. And you would get really clear about who you are, you know. But if perfectionism is conditioned in, and that was actually my experience, is perfectionism was actually conditioned. It really works against that, and pushes growth away, right? Because you're afraid to try new things if the standard is perfect at first attempt. It's just not realistic, right? And I've since learned to implement a growth mindset or uphold a growth mindset as opposed to a fixed mindset around things. meaning I give myself permission to grow. If I try something and I fail at first, I have a lot of room to grow then. So it's okay. It's still scary, I still feel cautious, but I can put that in check and not say, just because I'm learning a new song and I hit a sour note, say, that I'm a bad singer. It's not how it works, right? I don't think that way when I'm singing, because I've already proven to myself that I'm at a certain level. As far as activities I don't know anything about, that's a little different. But I'm willing to try, where at one point the idea of embarrassing myself maybe, or just really, thinking less of myself was not bearable. So that's growth, I think. Confront those areas where you have denied fault, exercised poor judgment, refused to grow, or given away your authority to others, and correct them as soon as they come to light. By admitting and addressing your mistakes as quickly as possible, you assume responsibility for your choices and take ownership of your strength and potential. Yeah, recently I was in a really angry, aggressive mood at work. And I was really in a complaining mindset, and I was complaining out loud to my coworker, and I expected her to be on my side about something that I didn't really even need her approval for anyway. Like, it was already decided. It was a situation where I had already talked about it and worked it out with my manager, so it wasn't even a problem. I was just in an angry place, so I was looking to vent in some way. And so, and my coworker always plays the devil's advocate, and I should know this by now. So we had an argument, and we started yelling at each other a little bit, like, I don't know what I was thinking. But again, that's the liver, the angry liver. So, and I wasn't eating good foods. I hadn't stocked my refrigerator yet when I came back from New York, and I was eating the food at work, and it's not healthy food, and so my body's very sensitive to that. So that's one reason why self-care and discipline with how you're nourishing yourself, what thoughts you're allowing in, what energies you're willing to entertain, affect everything, right? Any of those can be toxic for you. So it's about having boundaries and standards and discipline around that, and integrity, because I let myself slack, and it affected the way I showed up that day. I had emotional ups and downs that day. Toxic liver, toxic liver. That's why I'm detoxing it. Yeah, and there was no need for me to seek approval. There was no need for me to have her approval. I don't know why I was even looking for her approval. I guess I didn't realize that's what I was doing. I just wanted to commiserate, I guess. And I guess I was trying to hook her in, and for her to be like, yeah, I know, you're right. Because most people would do that, but she's not like that. She always plays devil's advocate. So I think that was good for me, actually, to wake me up and be like, even though I yelled at her, it was good for me to wake up and realize that was inappropriate energy to bring, and you know better than that, and so do better than that, and it was already taken care of. You didn't need her approval anyway. I get into the habit of having arguments in my head before I even get places. I rehearse what's going to happen and how I'm going to show up and how I'm going to defend myself. Sometimes it's like, okay, you don't need to do that. Like, you're putting yourself into this angry place before you even get there. And then sometimes I rehearse through affirmation work. I probably didn't do my affirmations that day. That I'm happy and that I am challenged, but I'm up for the challenge, and that my work excites me, and that it, you know, it supports my life purpose, and I meet the right people. You know, I affirm all these things, and then I tend to have a great day. I must have dropped that, so that's another reason, like, you need to be accountable with yourself. If you refuse to consciously admit your lapses in clear thinking or ignore your poor decisions indefinitely, sooner or later your soul will bring you face to face with these mistakes. Divine law decrees that you must be completely responsible for all of your actions in life, for this is the only way to assure that you've learned from them. Yep. For me, that includes boundaries. I used to think that when I was young, you know, and probably into my 20s, I have that role model life path, right? And hermit, which doesn't help. So I thought it was best for everybody if I didn't have needs. And I thought that made me good, right? To sacrifice my needs. And as a young girl, I didn't understand. I was overstimulated a lot in school. I was dissociated from my body, and so I didn't talk a lot. I was just always overstimulated for whatever reason. The lighting, the energy, classroom settings. I still dissociate and get really exhausted in classroom settings. Which, while I was in New York City, I had the honor of taking a class with Richard Schwartz, you know, who created Internal Family Systems, model of healing trauma. I took a class with him, and I actually had the opportunity to talk to him about that, and he helped me kind of dissect that in front of the class. It was very fascinating work. I couldn't take a vacation and not still have a class or learn something. And I got to do that at the Open Center, which is where I did most of my studies in holistic and esoteric philosophies and modalities. So I was just very, very excited to do that and to meet him. He's an incredible person. It's fascinating work. But I got to talk to him about that, about how, even to this day, I'm triggered to dissociate. And, you know, his system talks about we have different parts, and the dissociation is a part of me, of my personality, one of my personalities, right? And then he also differentiated tired as one of my personalities, and disappointed because I would miss part of the class, right? I wouldn't be fully present, and then I would miss important parts, and then I would end up disappointed. So we didn't really get into the deep work, but he helped me see that those were different parts. And in the work, you deal with people's protector parts, who show up first usually, the exiled parts, which are usually too sensitive. Someone has deemed them too sensitive. They're usually very young, based on trauma. You know, they went through something, and so they're just tender and sensitive and vulnerable, and so the person deemed them as weak, so they weren't allowed to show up, right? So they were exiled, and a protector is in place to not allow others contact with that part of them. And then there's firefighters, right? Which are the self-soothing parts, the parts that might get addicted, the parts that might have some sort of obsessive compulsive patterning, right? To self-soothe after a triggering event. And then there's the thinking parts of us, right? So there's all these parts, and I just found that very fascinating, and I definitely want to learn more about that. And if possible, incorporate that into the practice, the spiritual coaching practice that I have. Yeah, because that's fascinating. And I can see how that could line up with tarot, and the possibilities are endless. Crystals, you know, because crystals can be archetypes as well, and just really, really interesting. But yeah, check out Richard Schwartz, Internal Family Systems. Really interesting. You probably have a practitioner locally that does the work. It's just so interesting. Your soul does not step in to help you change until it becomes clear that left to your ego's devices, you will continue to make the same mistakes. Course corrections are spiritual interventions. They occur when you live in constant denial or ignore your errors, rather than being honest and confronting them. Although such a mediation can be painful, it is your saving grace in the end. Right? And we talked about, I think before, it speaks in a whisper first, right? You're just, hello, this is not a good action for you. And I oftentimes find myself asking for unmistakable guidance because sometimes I'm just so stubborn I don't see it. And even when it seems like it's unmistakable, right? Oh, a path is cleared for me, I might still get a no. And learning to not take that so personally and to not be so attached to outcomes is definitely growth for me. I've been very stubborn about what I want in the past and damaged relationships because of that, but learning to take rejection gracefully, perceived rejection, right? It could just be someone else upholding their own boundaries and have nothing to do with me. And that's another thing, right? Getting comfortable with my own boundaries so that others' boundaries aren't unbearable. You know, working through codependency, that's working through the enmeshment that tends to happen. You should want what I want, right? No, that's not reality. Or, you know, you should think the way I think. You know, I was kind of raised with that philosophy. You should eat the same exact foods I eat, you know? No, that's not healthy. So I've definitely had to work through a lot of that. And it still pops up, right? Because it's just the environment that I was used to. And I don't like that feeling, and I know that it's unhealthy. So really working on solid energetic boundaries and self-actualization and taking accountability for that. The universe flows with the energy of truth, love, and integrity at all times. Anything that moves away from these qualities is eventually redirected. All choices will ultimately be reconciled with higher truth. In the long run, course corrections make life more fulfilling because they align you with your divine self and purpose. They are not put in place to harm you, but to keep you from hurting yourself. It's true. I think that there's fate and then there's destiny. I think that I had things that were probably charted, that were written in my chart that were meant to happen, and yet I wasn't prepared. So for my own safety and well-being, I was taken off on a different course. One of those things is living in California. I think that if I would have jumped in, I would have gotten to the chaos of that city too, just like I did with New York, and not known how to care for myself, not had, optimal boundaries, optimal diet, and proper boundaries in relationship, and And I think that would have maybe been disastrous. So I think that is one thing. And one reason I had to kind of make a pit stop here and regroup and heal my adrenals and really get healthy in mind, body, and spirit, so that and also get clear about what my purpose actually is and what I actually want to do and focus on, because that's another thing. I was so scattered. I'm like, I want to write, I want to act, I want to sing, I want to do spiritual work, I want to educate, I want to, and it's just so much that I just didn't know where to start or what to focus on. Focusing on my health and my well-being and my healing helps me center and align to my highest truth and purpose, I think. So knowing that that's my focus right now feels like that's an integrity for me, to make sure I'm, because, you know, proper nutrition will heal your mind, heal your emotional state, you know, help you with longevity, endurance, strength, and boundaries, energetic boundaries, right? Gut health is so important for empaths and sensitives. It's just, that's where our boundaries come from, you know, energetically. And if we have leaky gut, say, that can be a physical manifestation of our porous energetic boundaries. So healing our gut is one way, which then heals the mind, right? Because they're linked. And my health is something that I used to really take for granted and not maintain. And I'm realizing that that's not a possibility anymore. It was getting harder and harder to wake up. My adrenals were fried. They were just done, right? My liver was pretty toxic, although I didn't understand that. That's something I think, inherited ancestrally. I didn't know that that was possible, but I've been reading the medical medium, and he does say that we can inherit toxicity from our ancestors. That makes sense. And that's very true for my personal ancestry. So working on this and healing this is another way to honor my ancestors and to create a really compelling future for myself, which honors them as well. And if I heal myself, I heal them as well. So not to take the burdens and the accountability for their actions too. That's too heavy. But that does inspire me and motivate me to feel like I'm having an impact, not just for my own self, but for my whole family. That's really inspiring to me. That sparks some passion for me, and gives me hope that I'll be able to healing myself with nutrition gives me hope that I'll be able to accomplish all these goals that I have in mind. I think this was the first thing I needed to work on. It was the priority. My innate wisdom knew that. You know, in Body Talk, we talk about innate wisdom. The innate knows. I was ignoring it. I wasn't accomplishing a lot, but I had a lot of goals in mind, and I think that working on vitality first, like for me, vitality is money, not time. So I think I'm on the right track now, and that gives me hope that I'll be able to achieve all the things I have in mind. I also think that's why the law of resonance is so or the law of magnetism, attraction, is so forgiving, is so merciful, because you know, I also feel like there were meetings that were charted for me. I was supposed to meet certain people, and though those situations were taken off course as well. They were and it didn't feel great at the time, right? Felt pretty heartbroken at the time, but I can see that I was having accelerated growth, and if I would have, you know, sort of jumped into a relationship, or gotten involved with somebody who maybe was dealing with their own toxicity and toxic patterning, that could have been really bad for me, especially since my boundaries weren't so solid quite yet. So, and that's something I might always be working on. We'll see. The healing has initiated, so we'll see. But yeah, I think that, you know, things don't always go according to plan, and I think that that's grace. I think that that's actually a positive. I can see that now. I used to feel like, used to react like a spoiled child, you know, like not getting my way, and get angry. But I can see how changing course was probably the best thing for me. It's what I needed to do. And right now I'm in a really good place, so I'm glad I'm taking this route for now. And I can always change course later. You will eventually confront every mistake you have ever made. Wow, all right. The severe earth changes that you have been witnessing are course corrections on a global level. The planet itself is a living, breathing, conscious being that is no longer willing to allow your thoughtless or intentional disrespect to continue. This is why she is unleashing tsunamis and record-breaking numbers of hurricanes and earthquakes that wipe out miles and miles of land and thousands of people. She is bringing to your attention your collective hubris, especially with regard to your lack of reverence and care for the natural world. It's hard to see. I mean, I feel like the people that are wiped out are innocent, usually. Well, I guess we could all be doing better to care for Mother Earth. I know I could be. I can see my accountability in that, especially coming back here. In New York, it was just second nature to recycle, second nature to bring my reusable bags, you know? It's just second nature. It's just part of the lifestyle for me. And here, it's very different lifestyle. At first, I really fought hard. I'd be like, let's recycle. I need to recycle. Consistently bring reusable bags when I go shopping, but after a while, you kind of fall into the pattern of the place you're at, and I get into the delusional thought patterning of, you know, when I'm in California, I'll make up for this, or, you know, one day it'll be easier, and, you know, for now I have to do this, I have to use this plastic or whatever. And it's just not true. Like, it might be less convenient, but I definitely believe it's worth the effort, and I could do better at that. I definitely could. Yeah. So I can see that. Yeah, I have such an appreciation for nature right now. It's definitely spring here, you know, there's baby robins nested right outside my door, and the sun's beaming on the mountains, and the green is just so beautiful. The flowers are blooming. the weather is beautiful. And while I was in New York, I actually visited the Brooklyn Botanic Garden for the first time. I had never gone for whatever reason, and it was so beautiful. And I didn't even get to see half of it, but just the parts that I saw. And I was thinking, oh, I can't wait to see flowers. But even the herbs and the trees and the animals there, it's just the energy of nature is so healing and grounding. And I went with my friend Tara, and we stood near an oak tree and did a grounding meditation with the roots of the tree, and we can always visit in our minds, and that was really cool. And then I also I was staying with her for part of the time, and she lives in Marine Park in Brooklyn, and I visited Marine Park, and that was beautiful too. Saw swans and fiddler crabs and things. It was really all the plants and trees and birds and yeah, nature is so healing. I definitely need to step up and do my part to take better care, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Look for evidence of soul interventions in your life today. Where are you being confronted by past mistakes? Where have you failed to be honest, keep your word, stay true to yourself, or love yourself? And what has it cost you? It does not even have to be catastrophic. For reckoning comes in subtle ways too. Yeah, I think that one of the main things I can see for myself right now is the way I used to abuse my body. I think in the arts, as an actress and singer, there was a time that I was very abusive to my body, living on diet pills and just, not eating, basically. So I was thin, but it makes you crazy. It makes you crazy. I had terrible mood swings, and my body became the enemy, it didn't trust me. And then eventually the pendulum swings the other way, and I gained a lot of weight, and I hated my body. I blamed my body. I resented my body. And it's like, that's your accountability for what you did. You kind of hurt your liver there with all your diet pills and things, and you made it really hard on yourself to lose weight. The liver has a really hard job. So, and liver issues run in my family. So detoxing the liver was a huge step for me. And it helps me show up better for other people. When we take care of ourselves, when we fill up our cup first, we can show up for other people in a better state and have better boundaries and just know ourselves better. And self-care is a habit. That's just how I roll. That's how I operate. And I can acknowledge when you're taking care of yourself too, and not be threatened by that, right? Because I'm not just trying to appease you or gain your approval. I'm taking care of myself and my personal needs, and you're taking care of yours. And then whatever needs we have for relationship, for friendship, for romantic relationship, whatever the paradigm, that can occur within relationship, but not our personal needs. We can sort of separate those out and take optimal care of ourselves. That's ideal. So that's definitely something I'm working on too, not being so enmeshed. Putting that into perspective. I think we can all do that a little bit, We're not really taught how to do that. We're not really taught that we have personal needs as opposed to relationship needs. When I even just heard that concept, I was like, oh, yeah, I guess that's true. Why am I relying on other people for this? and not very well either, because they never ask for help. Or so these are things I can do by myself. So it was true independence then, right? It was true Nine of Pentacles, if you will. It's like, you know, really taking care of myself and investing in myself. So it's an important distinction. And we do talk about preferences over the word need, because need has a charge, right? And preference is, it doesn't have to be, but I prefer. So that's another thing I want to be more accountable with, is using preferences instead of need when appropriate. So that's something else I'm putting into place, is that's my preference, so that in my mind, when it doesn't happen, when there's maybe a delay or a change of course or a closed door, I don't have a tantrum because it's not a need. It was just a preference. I prefer to actually go there or do that. No? Okay, well, it was just preference. It wasn't necessary. It wasn't a need, right? It's not for my survival. It was just for quality of life. But okay, change of course, I can do that. See, preference doesn't have a charge to me. Do you see it? Feel a distinction there? That was very helpful advice in one of the previous chapters. At first, it can feel quite overwhelming to be highly accountable. Yet this leads you to soul mastery. Love that word. Your ego resists being fully responsible for your choices. It prefers to blame others, remain a victim, and stay in a vicious cycle of powerlessness. But the universe never sees you as helpless, because you are not. It's so true. Yeah, I've been keeping myself in check about the blaming thing. I want to go there because it's that perfectionistic tendency too, where it's like, I need to be right. If I'm not right, then the world is wrong. So yeah, I've been trying to put that in check, and seeing gray area where people love to think in terms of black and white. That's just not rational. And I noticed this in the healing community as well. Like, oftentimes, clients will show up wanting to give you a piece of themselves, right? Just, here, you take this to heal, please. Like, I don't know what to do. And it's disempowering, and it's burdening to the healer if they don't understand that that's not their role, right? Well, before there's really strong, solid boundaries in place, and professionalism, there can be enmeshment like that. Empaths tend to do that. Take on, right, someone's burden, and then it can feel very heavy, and it's enabling and disempowering for the client anyway. But people love to give their power away in that way. And become dependent. And we kind of give that impression by calling ourselves a healer. In a way, it's not really accurate, is it? You're healing yourself. I'm facilitating and cueing your system. But your higher self, your innate wisdom, is what's healing you, not me, right? I'm facilitating. I'm giving your body the cues that it needs, right? Or the prompts, but I'm not responsible for the healing. So I think once we can put that in check and kind of explain that, we can discontinue this disempowering process. The fact that you need to come to me. The healing is happening because of your energy, your higher self, your innate wisdom, right? I'm just kind of cueing or providing source energy, but that's not from me. So it doesn't, nobody good to take on pieces of other people. It's actually very burdening. And I found that before I really understood that concept, I would take on pieces from other people, and and it would be too heavy, and then I would feel so overwhelmed. I feel like I was drowning. That's how I would describe it. I would always be like, I feel like I'm drowning, like I don't know what to do. And it's the feeling of taking on other people's burden all the time. And then you go and you isolate, right? Because that's while you disentangle and process out these attachments, slowly giving people their pieces back, and then, okay, I'm back to center. I can, oh, now, you know what? I actually feel good enough to go do the work again. And then you just recreate the cycle. But until you really understand that your role is not to take on pieces of other people, right? Your role is not to say, will you be my partner? Here's my heart. Will you please take care of it? No, we can't do that. So, you know, caring for ourselves is our priority. It's in integrity to not give away that power, right? Not expect someone else to care for it. And also to not enable people in doing that. And it's a learning curve. We're learning. We still fall into it sometimes. In spite of the short-term pain that often comes with facing your mistakes, you immediately experience the soul benefits of doing so. When you align with your spirit, you free the power of the universe to flow through you. When you cooperate with divine law and fully commit to living in truth, something miraculous happens. Drama subsides and life begins to unfold peacefully. This is the natural way and in order with sacred plan. I'm sorry for harping on this, but I really feel like optimizing nutrition is so helpful for this. It heals, it repairs your damaged organs and brain, and I mean, your brain's an organ, but it really does stabilize you, repair. I mean, it's one aspect, right? And then working through the things that can't be attributed to that. But what a great start, what a great base, right? To be fully nourished, fully hydrated, with living foods. I really feel like it's one of the best things you can do for yourself, is to really heal that. A lot of things fall into place when you do. Adrenal repair, clearer mind, clearer thinking, sort of less brain fog, stronger boundaries, stronger sense of self. That's all in the gut, right? And then I think that can also heal codependency, because codependency is an addiction to another person, right? So I feel so much hope around this. I don't mean to be preaching about it. I hope that's not how it's coming across. I'm just in such a state of wellness that from making good choices recently in this way about nutrition, that I just feel like I'm overflowing with the joy of it. It's pretty miraculous what, healthy food choice and nourishing yourself can do. I think I was in denial about that for a very long time. Become the master of your experience rather than a victim by addressing your errors as soon as you become aware of them. Although it may be challenging, humbling, and disruptive to admit that you have had a lapse in judgment, it is always empowering on a soul level. We'll be doing that in meditation. We're going to take a look, something that might be hard to look at, but we're going to find a way to have compassion for ourselves so that we can accept fully and then make amends. When things do not go your way, allow at least one part of you to step back and observe without reacting. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? What am I ignoring, denying, fearing, or tolerating that is not in alignment with my higher self? that idea of parts, right? That idea that we're made of parts. Everybody, not just people with borderline personality disorder, right? Everybody, we all are comprised of parts. I just think that's a fascinating idea. Yeah. There's a thinking and processing part of you that if you access that, will be a little more disassociated from the situation and able to think more rationally and logically and grounded. And also tuning into higher self. That's another part, right? And that's the other thing that Richard Schwartz will talk about, is that he didn't have to do a lot to help somebody through. Once they were able to access their self with a capital S, higher self, right? We're talking about higher self here. The healing takes care of itself. Like, they know what to do to heal. The self with a capital S is the compassionate part, the wise part, the centered part, the part that's connected to a higher purpose, a higher being, a higher state. So once he could see that the client was, or the patient, I guess, was connected to that self with a capital S, he was able to simply sit back and sort of just ask questions to help the parts communicate amongst themselves. But the healing really took care of itself. So interesting. Do not blame yourself, but rather seek to understand where you've gone astray in your choices. Once you face your mistakes and set about correcting them, you gain a freedom that nothing can take away. Yeah, if we can face it, if we can accept, that idea of self-image that we talked about a long time ago, I think, when I was talking about the other book I was reading by Maxwell Maltz, dealing with self-image, the title escapes me now, of course, but that growth mindset, allowing yourself to make mistakes in order to grow and learn, and being able to face it, not having the perfectionistic attitude or fixed mindset around anything. I'm here to learn and grow, and if I'm able to confront my own mistakes, there's nothing I can't face. There's nothing I can't face. As Shakespeare so eloquently said, "To thine own self be true." Love a Shakespeare quote. The crystal I recommend, now that my hands are so pink from this journal, is amethyst. We haven't worked with amethyst yet. Can you believe that? Probably most everybody has a piece of amethyst who's working with crystals. I have a few pieces here I want to show you. This is a nice little point. It's a stone of psychic protection and relaxation, as well as connection. Right? This is a nice little geode. It enhances spiritual awareness, right, which is what we're working on, wisdom, and higher states of consciousness. Helps us remain accountable, right? Little tumbled piece. Amethyst. It may alleviate headaches, repair holes in the aura, and aid in psychic development. Help us get insight. And then I also have a tiny little point here. Not that tiny, but cute little point. It's great for crown, working with the crown chakra or third eye. It's a little sharper of a termination, but still. Works with third eye and crown chakra opening, and provides stress relief. That's what you're seeking. So beautiful. Amethyst. And then the oil I recommend is sandalwood. Sandalwood essential oil. Wait for that to focus. There we go. Sandalwood connects you to a sense of spiritual devotion, assists with prayer work, meditation, and spiritual practice, teaches us reverence and respect for a higher power, encourages material sacrifice when appropriate for spiritual progress, quiets your mind, aligns you to divine will, and raises you to higher levels of consciousness. That's a theme, higher levels of consciousness. Leave behind attachment to fame, wealth, and the longing for acceptance. Yes, we talked about that attachment to acceptance and approval from others. We don't need it. All right, we all need a little validation here and there. So just to remind you, you can work with the crystal in any way you want, right? Oh, and there's, in the description, there's a link if you want more information on amethyst, opportunities to purchase from healingcrystals.com. I'm an employee there, so you can use my discount, Rachel10. That's also written in the description. I don't benefit financially if you purchase from them, just to be transparent. There's a link to the sandalwood oil. I do benefit financially if you shop the link below where I have the sandalwood. I think I also have fractionated coconut oil for dilution of the oil if you want to anoint yourself with it. I also have my favorite diffuser linked, the Lumo diffuser. It's awesome. It has different lighting options and just has a nice stream of water ionizing, a stream of water ions, you know, that carry the oil into the room and really, really does fill up the room with the scent, so that you're able to inhale. And that's how we're working with it in the unconscious, right? When we work with oils for the unconscious, or for the spiritual work, we're working with chronic issues, so we need low doses more consistently. And that's how we work with the oils in the diffuser. So go ahead and put, if you're using an eye pillow, go ahead and put some oil on the eye pillow. You might want to put it right just where you will inhale it. It's probably safest to dilute, or put it in the diffuser and get the diffuser going. Amethyst may want to go on your third eye. You might want to go near your crown. You may want to hold it in your receiving hand. However you want to work with it here, it may want to go on another chakra. Feel it out. There's no wrong or right as long as it's not creating any pain or discomfort. You're good. Just be mindful of that, right? Have good boundaries with your own self-care. You might be working with your clear quartz, programming it with your giving hand. We're getting ready for meditation. Go ahead and put your eye pillow on if you're lying down or reclined, or if you have a sleep mask, if you're seated. And start by taking slow, intentional breath. Deep belly breaths. Feeling how supported you are by whatever is holding you up. Noticing any areas of tension or resistance to being connected to the earth. Breathing into those, noticing with the inhale, sweeping out with the exhale. Where does the energy want to flow? Does the stagnant energy want to come out the bottoms of your feet or up to the crown of the head and out to be transmuted? Feel the nurturing, supportive energy of Mother Earth as you're fully supported. With each breath, more and more accepting of her nurturing and less resistant. Feel how fully supported you are. We're going to start with our intentional breath. We're going to inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, and pause for 4, and I'll lead you through it. Inhale through the nose. Hold. Exhale through the mouth. Pause. Inhale through the nose. Hold. Exhale through the mouth. Pause. Inhale through the nose. Hold. Exhale out the mouth. Pause. Inhale through the nose. Hold. Exhale out the mouth. Pause. Inhale through the nose. Hold. Exhale out the mouth. Pause. One more time. Inhale through the nose. Hold. Exhale out the mouth. Pause. And breathe normally and naturally. You may want to continue inhaling through the nose to perceive the aroma of the oil and exhale out the mouth so you're not blowing it out, but whatever helps you get into the most relaxed state. We're working with the affirmation, I address my mistakes in order to live with integrity in all areas of my life. I address my mistakes in order to live with integrity in all areas of my life. I address my mistakes in order to live with integrity in all areas of my life. Notice any past events, decisions, conversations, or behaviors that come to mind. Even if your intentions were good, was there a slight to someone else or a disregard for your own well-being? Ask your higher self to show you what's priority to address right now. Past event, behavior, conversation, or decision that had a negative impact on yourself or others. What's priority now? Were you out of integrity with your own standard of behavior? Once you have that clear, in order to understand this memory in more depth, ask your higher self to show you any choices, thoughts, or traumas from the past that triggered this response in you. Can you see why you acted in such a way? Or why you chose those words? Or why you made that choice? What led up to that? Instead of wrestling with guilt or shame, are you now able to have compassion for yourself? Can you fully accept your personal accountability in this situation instead of resisting due to remorse? It all starts with compassion for yourself. Can you feel that? And now ask your higher self what you could do to address this situation and be in integrity and at peace. This retribution may seem unrelated or indirect, but allow your higher self to guide you with trust and openness. What can you do to make amends? Are there certain words, an action, a new boundary, an apology? What will help you feel in the highest integrity and feel peace around the situation? And once you have that clear in your mind's eye, ask your higher self, how long should you give yourself to take this action? Can this be completed within the week? In order to keep yourself accountable, just give yourself a time limit, a deadline. Let's anchor in this commitment to integrity with the aroma of the oil. Inhale through the nose. Hold. Exhale through the mouth. Pause. Inhale through the nose. Hold. Exhale through the mouth. Pause. One more time. Inhale through the nose. Hold. Exhale through the mouth. Pause. And breathe normally and naturally. I address my mistakes in order to live with integrity in all areas of my life. And so it is.